Captain Tejo rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the radar screen. 3 weeks of flying cargo runs between stations had left him exhausted. His ship, the Wandering Star, was not the biggest or fastest freighter in space, but it was home. The old vessel creaked and hummed as it moved through the dark void between stars. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on the sensors," called Boram from the engine room. She was the best mechanic Tejo had ever worked with, even if she was only 25 years old. Her voice crackled through the ship's old communication. System Tejo leaned forward in his pilot chair. "What kind of strange?" "Looks like a small craft, maybe an escape pod. It's drifting about 2 kilometers off our port side." Hyunwoo, the ship's navigator, looked up from his charts. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless something was important. "Captain, we're still 3 hours from Kepler Station. That pod has been out here a long time if it's this far from any trade route." Tejo made a decision quickly. In space, every minute could mean the difference between life and death for whoever might be inside that pod. "Change course, let's go take a look." The Wandering Star turned slowly toward the unknown craft. As they got closer, Tejo could see it was indeed an escape pod, but unlike any design he had seen before, the metal was dark blue with strange symbols carved into its surface. Parts of it looked damaged as if it had been hit by weapons fire. "Life signs?" Tejo asked. Boram checked her instruments. 1. Very weak but still alive. "Bring us alongside. Hyunwoo, prepare the docking tube." The rescue took 20 minutes. The pod's docking system was completely different from human designs, but Boram managed to connect their ship's rescue tube to the pod's emergency hatch. Tejo put on his spacesuit and went to investigate. The pod's interior was dark and cold. Emergency lights blinked weakly along the walls. In the center, strapped into a safety harness, was a small figure. At first, Tejo thought it might be a human child, but as his helmet light fell across the figure, he realized this was something else entirely. The child appeared to be a young girl, maybe 8 years old by human standards. But her skin had a strange quality to it, like looking at polished metal that shifted between silver and gold in the light. Her hair was pure white and seemed to glow faintly. Most surprising of all were her eyes. When she opened them and looked at Tejo, he saw depths that reminded him of looking into space itself, filled with distant stars. She was awake, but very weak. Her lips moved, trying to speak, but no sound came out. Tejo quickly checked the pod's life support systems. The air was almost gone and the temperature was dropping fast. "Don't worry," he said softly, even though he wasn't sure she could understand human speech. "I'm going to help you." He carefully unstrapped her from the safety harness and lifted her in his arms. She weighed almost nothing, like holding a bird. As they moved through the docking tube back to his ship, she looked up at him with those incredible eyes and whispered a single word in a language he didn't recognize. Back on the Wandering Star, Boram had prepared the medical bay. It wasn't much, just a small room with basic medical equipment, but it was warm and safe. They laid the strange child on the medical bed and connected her to the ship's medical systems. "Her body temperature is too low," Boram said, reading the instruments. "And look at these readings. Her blood has some kind of metal in it, but it's not poisoning her. It seems to be natural." The ship's medical computer ran scan after scan, but could not identify what species the child belonged to. According to the galactic database, no known alien race matched her physical characteristics. For 2 days, the child slept while the Wandering Star continued toward Kepler Station. Tejo found himself checking on her often. Something about her reminded him of his sister's daughter back on Earth, though this child looked nothing like a human. On the 3rd day, she woke up. Tejo was sitting beside her bed, reading reports on his datapad when he heard a soft voice speak in broken galactic standard. Where are the collectors?" He looked up to see her sitting up in bed, those star-like eyes wide with fear. "The who?" Tejo asked gently. "The collectors. The ones who hurt me." Her voice was small and scared, like any frightened child. "There's no one here who wants to hurt you," Tejo said. "You're safe on my ship. My name is Tejo. What's your name?" She stared at him for a long moment as if trying to decide whether to trust him. Finally, she spoke. Nuri, my name is Nuri. That's a pretty name. Nuri, can you tell me where you came from? How did you end up in that escape pod? Nuri's face scrunched up as if she was trying to remember something difficult. There were big ships, cold rooms, people in white clothes who did things to me. I ran away. I found the small ship and made it go, but I don't remember how. Tejo felt anger rise in his chest. Someone had been experimenting on this child. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You're safe now. Are you going to give me back to them? Nuri asked, her voice very small. No, Tejo said firmly. I won't let anyone hurt you. Something in his voice must have convinced her, because she relaxed for the first time since waking up. You promise? I promise. Over the next few days, as they approached Kepler Station, Nuri began to trust the crew of the Wandering Star. Boram brought her simple foods to try, and Hyunwoo showed her pictures of different planets and stars. But it was Tejo she clung to most. She followed him around the ship, asking endless questions about everything she saw. When he explained how the hyperdrive worked, she understood it faster than most adults. When he showed her star charts, she could read them as if she had been born knowing stellar navigation. You're very smart, Nuri, Tejo told her one evening as they sat in the ship's small dining area. My people we're smart, she said sadly. But I think I'm the only one left now. What happened to your people? Nuri shook her head. I don't remember much, just running and being scared, and then the collectors found me. At Kepler Station, Tejo tried to find any record of Nuri's species in the galactic databases. He spent hours searching through files of known alien races but found nothing that matched her description. It was as if her people had never existed or had been completely erased from galactic records. The station authorities wanted to take Nuri to a refugee center, but she refused to leave Tejo's side. She wrapped her small arms around his leg and begged him not to let them take her away. Standing in the station's administrative office, watching this frightened child cling to him, Tejo made a decision that would change both their lives forever. I want to adopt her, he told the surprised bureaucrat behind the desk. Sir, you can't just adopt an unknown alien child. There are procedures, background checks, species compatibility studies. She has no family, no home, and no one else. Who cares about her? Tejo said firmly. I'm willing to take responsibility for her. Isn't that what matters? It took 3 days of paperwork and arguments with various officials. But finally, the Galactic Adoption Registry approved the request. Nuri was officially listed as Tejo's daughter, with her species listed as unknown, and her planet of origin as classified. As they walked back to the Wandering Star together, Nuri looked up at Tejo with those amazing eyes full of stars. Appa, she said, using the old Korean word for father. Thank you for choosing me. Tejo smiled and took her small hand in his. Thank you for choosing me too. Neither of them knew that this simple act of kindness would soon catch the attention of powers that could reshape the galaxy. For now, they were just a father and daughter, walking toward their ship and the adventures waiting among the stars. 3 years had passed since Tejo found Nuri floating in that damaged escape pod. The Wandering Star had become a true home for the strange little family they had created together. Nuri was now 11 years old, though she looked and acted much like any human child her age. Her appearance had changed over the years. The metallic shine of her skin had faded to something that looked almost human, with just a slight shimmer when light hit it the right way. Her white hair had grown longer and sometimes seemed to glow softly in the dark corners of the ship. Only her eyes remained the same, deep and full of distant stars that seemed to hold secrets from across the galaxy. Appa, the hyperdrive is making that noise again, Nuri called from the engine room where she was helping Boram with repairs. Tejo smiled as he heard her voice. She had learned to speak perfect galactic standard, but she still called him Appa in the old Korean way. It made his heart warm every time. Which noise? Boram asked, wiping grease from her hands. The clicking or the humming? The clicking that sounds like rain on metal, Nuri said. It started about an hour ago. Boram looked surprised. She had been working on engines for 10 years, but she hadn't noticed the sound Nuri was talking about. She listened carefully and then heard it, a faint clicking that most people would never catch. "You're right," Boram said. "How did you hear that from the other side of the ship?" Nuri shrugged. "Machines talk if you listen to them." This was not the first time Nuri had surprised them with her abilities. She could fix broken equipment just by touching it and thinking about how it should work. She understood star charts better than most trained navigators. When Hyunwoo taught her about stellar navigation, she learned in days what took most people months to master. "She's special, that one," Hyunwoo had told Taiho privately. "I've never seen anyone understand space travel so naturally." But Nuri never acted like she thought she was special. She helped with ship duties, learned her lessons, and played simple games like any child. She loved when Taiho told her stories about Earth and the early days of human space travel. In return, she sometimes shared memories from her early childhood, though they were often strange and hard to understand. "I remember ships that sang," she told him one evening as they sat in the ship's small dining area. "Beautiful songs that made the stars dance, and people who could step between worlds without machines." "Your people could travel without spaceships?" Taiho asked. "I think so, but it's hard to remember. Everything from before the collectors is like trying to see through fog." Taiho noticed that she never wanted to talk about the collectors for very long. Whenever the subject came up, she would change the topic or find something else to do. He didn't push her. Some memories were too painful to revisit. Life aboard the Wandering Star had settled into a comfortable routine. They carried cargo between the smaller trading stations, avoiding the big commercial routes where the major shipping companies operated. It was honest work that paid enough to keep the ship running and the crew fed. Nuri had her own small cabin next to Taiho's, decorated with star charts and pictures of different worlds they had visited. She kept a collection of small objects from various planets, things that most people would consider junk but that she found beautiful. A piece of crystal from the ice world of Hoth 7, a smooth stone from the desert moon of Kepler 3, a dried flower from the garden stations of Verdant Ring. "Why do you keep these things?" Boram asked her one day. "They remember their homes," Nuri said simply. "Even when they're far away, they still remember." During their stops at trading stations, Nuri stayed close to the ship. She was friendly with the crew members they met, but she seemed uncomfortable around large groups of people. Taiho noticed that she was especially nervous around anyone in uniform or official clothing. "Do they remind you of the collectors?" he asked her once. She nodded. "The collectors wore white coats. They had shiny badges and they talked about me, like I wasn't there. They said I was important, but they never asked what I wanted." "Well, you're not important to anyone here except us," Taiho told her. "And we only care because you're family." That seemed to make her happy. Family was the most important word in Nuri's vocabulary. The crew of the Wandering Star had indeed become her family in every way that mattered. Boram taught her how to repair different types of machinery and showed her the art of keeping old engines running smoothly. Hyunwoo shared his knowledge of navigation and told her stories about the strange things he had seen during his years traveling between stars. But it was with Taiho that Nuri spent most of her time. She helped him with ship operations, learned about trade negotiations, and listened to his stories about growing up on Earth. He told her about seasons and rain, about his family's small farm, and the old dog they had when he was young. "I wish I could see Earth," Nuri said one day as they watched a beautiful blue planet grow larger on their view screen. "Maybe someday we can visit," Taiho replied. "Would you like that?" "Only if you come with me. I don't want to go anywhere without my family." Their peaceful life was interrupted during a routine stop at Nexus Prime, one of the larger trading stations in the sector. They had delivered a cargo of rare metals and were loading supplies for their next job when the accident happened. Nuri was helping to load heavy containers when the loading crane malfunctioned. A massive container full of mining equipment broke free and fell toward a group of dock workers below. People screamed and tried to run, but there wasn't enough time. Without thinking, Nuri reached out her hand toward the falling container. For a moment that seemed to last forever, the massive piece of cargo stopped in midair, floating 3 meters above the ground as if held by invisible hands. The dock workers stared in amazement. The container hung in the air for several seconds, before Nuri gently lowered it to the ground beside them, safe and undamaged. "How did you do that?" one of the workers asked, his voice full of wonder. Nuri looked around at all the staring faces, and suddenly realized what she had done. Her eyes went wide with fear. I don't know. It just happened." Tejo quickly stepped forward and put his arm around her shoulders. "Must have been a secondary safety system on the crane," he said loudly. "Good thing the station maintains their equipment so well." Most of the workers accepted this explanation and went back to their jobs, grateful to be alive. But Tejo noticed one figure in the crowd who didn't look convinced. A tall, thin alien with pale skin and dark eyes watched them carefully from the shadows near the loading bay. When their eyes met, the stranger turned and walked away quickly. That night, back on the ship, Tejo sat down with Nuri in her cabin. "We need to talk about what happened today," he said gently. Nuri pulled her knees up to her chest and wrapped her arms around them. "I'm sorry, Appa. I didn't mean to. I just saw those people were going to get hurt, and I wanted to help them." "You don't need to apologize for saving people," Tejo said. "But I need to understand. Have you been able to do things like that before?" She nodded slowly. "Sometimes. Little things. When something is broken, I can sometimes fix it by thinking about it. When I'm scared, lights get brighter, but I've never done anything that big before." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was afraid you would think I was dangerous. The collector said I was dangerous. They said that's why they had to keep me locked up." Tejo felt his heart break, a little. He pulled her into a hug. "Nuri, listen to me very carefully. You are not dangerous. You are my daughter, and nothing will ever change that. But we need to be more careful. There are people in the galaxy who might want to hurt you if they knew what you could do." "Like the collectors?" "Maybe. I don't know. But from now on, we need to keep your abilities secret, okay? Just between our family." Nuri nodded against his shoulder. "Okay, Appa. I'll be more careful." As Tejo tucked her into bed that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that their quiet life was about to change. Somewhere in the dark corners of Nexus Prime Station, that pale-skinned stranger was probably making a call to someone who would be very interested in what he had seen. The wandering star left Nexus Prime the next morning, carrying its precious cargo toward the Outer Rim territories. None of them knew that far away. In the cold halls of a Vorthon military ship, alarms were beginning to sound. The hunt for the star Orphan was about to begin. 2 weeks after leaving Nexus Prime, the crew of the Wandering Star thought they were safe. They had taken a cargo job to the Outer Rim territories, far from the busy trade routes where most galactic traffic traveled. The job was simple: deliver medical supplies to a small mining colony on the edge of known space. Tejo was reading in his cabin when the ship's alarms suddenly began screaming. He ran to the bridge where Hyunwoo was staring at the sensor display with wide eyes. "Captain, we have a problem," Hyunwoo said, his voice tight with fear. "A big problem." On the main screen, Tejo saw something that made his blood turn cold. A massive warship was approaching them, easily 10 times the size of the Wandering Star. Its hull was dark gray with sharp angles that looked like the teeth of some giant space creature. Red lights pulsed along its sides like angry eyes. "Vorthon, battlecruiser," Boram said from the engine room through the communication system. "Military class. They have enough firepower to turn us into space dust." Nuri appeared in the doorway of the bridge, still wearing her sleeping clothes. "Appa, what's happening? Why are the alarms so loud?" Before Tejo could answer, a voice filled their ship. It was cold and mechanical, speaking in perfect galactic standard with a Vorthon accent. "Human vessel Wandering Star. This is Commander Veltharion of the Vorthon military ship destroyer of worlds. You will prepare to be boarded immediately. Any resistance will result in your destruction." Tejo felt Nuri move closer to him. She was shaking, and he could see fear in her star-filled eyes. "What do they want with us?" she whispered, I don't know. Teho lied. He had a terrible feeling he knew exactly what they wanted. The Vorthan ship moved alongside the wandering star like a whale swimming next to a small fish. Docking tubes extended from the warship and locked onto their hull, with loud clanging sounds. Within minutes, armed Vorthan soldiers were walking through their ship. The Vorthans were tall, pale beings with long limbs and faces that looked almost human, except for their completely black eyes. They wore dark armor that made no sound as they moved. Their leader was different from the others. He was taller, with silver markings on his armor that showed his high rank. "I am Commander Veltharion," he said as he stepped onto the bridge. His voice was the same cold one they had heard over the communication system. "Which of you is Captain Teho?" "I am," Teho said, stepping forward to put himself between the commander and Nuri. Veltharion looked past him to where Nuri was trying to hide behind Hyunwoo. "And you are the asset." "Her name is Nuri," Teho said firmly. "She's my daughter." The Vorthan commander made a sound that might have been laughter, but there was no humor in it. "Your daughter? Human, you have no idea what you have been harboring. On your ship. Then tell me." Veltharion gestured to one of his soldiers who activated a holographic projector. Images filled the air above them, showing star charts and ancient symbols that looked similar to the ones that had been carved into Nuri's escape pod. "The being you call Nuri is the last surviving member of a species known as the Stellar Architects," the commander said. "They were an ancient race that disappeared from the galaxy over 50,000 years ago. Before they vanished, they built the hyperspace network that connects all civilized worlds. Every jump gate, every faster-than-light communication relay, every piece of technology that allows galactic civilization to exist was created by her people." Teho felt his world shifting around him. "That's impossible. Nuri is just a child. Look at her eyes, human. Look at her skin. Look at how easily she understands technology that should be beyond any child's comprehension. She is not just any child. She is the living key to powers that could reshape the galaxy." Nuri stepped out from behind Hyunwoo, her small hands clenched into fists. "You're lying. My people weren't builders. They were... She stopped, confusion filling her face as memories seemed to fight each other in her mind. "Your people possessed the ability to manipulate space and time itself," Veltharion continued. "They could create wormholes, bend the laws of physics, and travel between dimensions. The hyperspace lanes that every ship in the galaxy uses to travel faster than light are not just roads through space. They are living constructs grown from the genetic template of your species." "Why are you telling us this?" Teho demanded. "Because the asset belongs to the Vorthan hegemony. Our scientists have been searching for a surviving stellar architect for centuries. When she escaped from our research facility 3 years ago, we thought she was lost forever." Nuri's face went completely pale. "The collectors. You were the collectors." "We prefer the term researchers. You were kept in our facility for your own protection and for the advancement of galactic science. The experiments we performed were necessary to understand your capabilities." "You hurt me," Nuri said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You kept me in a cold room and you did things to me that made me scream." For the first time, the Vorthan commander's expression seemed to soften slightly. "Regrettable, perhaps, but necessary. You are the last of your kind. Your genetic code contains the secrets to technology that could solve every energy crisis, every transportation problem, every limitation that currently holds back galactic civilization." "She's not a thing to be studied," Teho said angrily. "She's a person with feelings and rights. She is a resource of unimaginable value," Veltharion replied coldly. "And she will be returning with us." "No," Nuri said suddenly. The word came out with such force that the lights on the bridge flickered. "I won't go back to that place. I won't let you hurt me anymore. You do not have a choice in this matter, asset." "My name is Nuri," she said, and this time her voice carried a strange harmonic that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. "And this is my family. You can't take me away from them." Veltharion signaled to his soldiers, who began to move toward Nuri. Take her to the ship. Use sedatives if necessary. But as the first soldier reached for her, something extraordinary happened. Nuri closed her eyes and held out her hands, and suddenly the space around them began to twist and bend like water. The soldier's hand passed right through her as if she wasn't there. Impossible, Veltharion breathed. I remember now, Nuri said, her eyes still closed. I remember what my people could do, and I remember why they disappeared. The air around her began to glow with soft silver light. When she opened her eyes, they were no longer just deep like space. They actually contained tiny points of light, like looking at real stars. My people didn't disappear, she said, her voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere at once. They sacrificed themselves to prevent their technology from being misused. They knew that beings like you would try to use their power to control others. The fabric of space around them continued to bend and twist. Through the viewports, they could see that the stars outside had begun to move in impossible ways. They left me behind as a safeguard, Nuri continued. If anyone ever tried to force me to use my abilities for evil purposes, I would know what to do. Stop this immediately, Veltharion commanded, but his voice now carried a note of fear. I'm not going with you, Nuri said firmly. And you're not going to hurt my family. She reached out with her mind and touched the fabric of space around them. Reality folded like paper, and suddenly a tear appeared in the air beside the wandering star. Through the tear they could see swirling colors and distant stars. A wormhole, Hyunwoo whispered in amazement. Everyone hold on to something, Nuri said. Her voice was still her own, but it carried the weight of ancient knowledge. This might be bumpy. The wandering star was pulled into the wormhole like a leaf caught in a whirlwind. The Vorthon soldiers and their commander were thrown around the bridge as space folded around them. Through the chaos, Taeho could hear Veltharion shouting orders, but his words were lost in the sound of reality bending. When the wormhole collapsed behind them, they found themselves floating in empty space, light years away from where they had been. The Vorthon battlecruiser was nowhere to be seen. Nuri collapsed to her knees, the glow fading from her skin and her eyes returning to their normal star-like appearance. Taeho rushed to her side and caught her before she could fall. "Eri, you okay?" he asked, holding her close. "I'm tired, Appa," she said weakly. "Using that much power, it hurts." "You saved us," Boram said, her voice full of wonder. "You actually saved us from a Vorthon battlecruiser." But their relief was short-lived. As Hyunwoo checked their position, his face grew serious. "Captain, we have another problem. That wormhole didn't just move us through space. According to these readings, we're now in the middle of 3 different territorial boundaries. Vorthon space is behind us, but Crystalline Syndicate territory is to our left, and Zephyrian Republic space is to our right." "What does that mean?" Nuri asked. Taeho looked at the star charts with growing dread. "It means word about you is going to spread fast. 3 different galactic powers are going to want to claim you now." As if summoned by his words, the ship's communication system activated. 3 different voices began speaking at once, each in a different language, but all carrying the same message translated by the ship's computer. "Attention, unknown vessel. You are carrying a being of significant strategic value. Prepare to be boarded for inspection and transfer of said being to proper A." The next few weeks were the hardest of Taeho's life. The wandering star jumped from system to system, never staying in one place for more than a few hours. Every time they stopped for fuel or supplies, they saw wanted posters with Nuri's face on them. The bounty for her capture had grown so large that it could buy entire planets. 50 million galactic credits, Boram read from a bounty notice at a remote fuel station. "Dead or alive?" "They don't really mean dead, do they?" Nuri asked quietly. She had grown thinner over the past weeks, and her eyes held a sadness that made Taeho's heart ache. "No, little one," he said, putting his arm around her shoulders. "They need you alive. The dead or alive part is just to scare people into not fighting back when they try to capture you." But even as he said it, Taeho wasn't entirely sure. The three galactic empires had done something unprecedented. They had formed what they called the Reclamation Pact, an alliance between the Vorthan hegemony, the Crystalline Syndicate, and the Zephyrian Republic. For the first time in galactic history, three powers that usually fought each other were working together for a single goal: capturing Nuri. The news broadcasts showed fleets of warships from all three empires patrolling the major trade routes. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, and pirates had joined the hunt. Even some planetary governments had offered to help, hoping to gain favor with the three empires. "It's like the entire galaxy has gone crazy," Hyunwoo said as he studied the star charts, looking for safe routes through space. But the worst part wasn't the ships hunting them. The worst part was what was happening to the galaxy's infrastructure. Nuri's emotions were affecting the hyperspace network that connected all civilized worlds. When she was frightened, which was often, hyperspace lanes became unstable. Ships would drop out of faster-than-light travel in the wrong places, sometimes light years from where they intended to go. When she was angry about being hunted, entire star systems would lose their faster-than-light communication networks. Planets that depended on regular supply ships began to run short on food and medicine. The galactic stock markets crashed as trade became unreliable. "I'm hurting people," Nuri said one evening as they sat in the ship's dining area. Her voice was small and filled with guilt. "All those ships that get lost, all those people who can't talk to their families on other planets, it's my fault." "It's not your fault," Taeho said firmly. "You can't control how your emotions affect things. You're still learning about your abilities. But people are suffering because of me. Maybe I should just turn myself in. Maybe then everything would go back to normal." "No," Taeho said more sharply than he intended. "We've seen what they did to you before. I won't let you go back to being locked in a cold room and experimented on." Taeho had contacted his old friend Jin-A, hoping she might have some advice. Jin-A had once worked for human military intelligence before becoming an information broker. She lived on a hidden space station in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system, dealing in secrets and information. "You have no idea how bad this has gotten," Jeannie told them when they met her at her secret base. She was a tough woman in her 40s with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The three empires aren't just working together to find you. They're preparing for what comes after." "What do you mean?" Taeho asked. "They've agreed to share custody of the girl. Each empire gets her for 4 months out of the year. They plan to use her abilities to rebuild and control the hyperspace network. Whoever controls faster-than-light travel controls the galaxy." "That's terrible," Boram said. "She's not a piece of equipment to be shared around." "To them she is," Ginny replied. "They see her as the key to unlimited power. But there's something else you should know. I've been monitoring their communications. They're not planning to keep her conscious during the experiments. They want to put her in a permanent sleep state and hook her brain directly to their computers." Nuri, who had been quietly listening, suddenly looked up with terror in her star-filled eyes. "Like the machines the collectors used? The ones that made me have nightmares even when I was awake?" "Probably worse," Jin-A said sadly. "I'm sorry, kid. I know this isn't what you want to hear." They left Jin-A's station with more information but no hope. The galaxy had become a trap with no way out. Every jump gate was monitored, every planet watched, every hiding place eventually discovered. Their fuel was running low when they reached the Terminus system, a remote area near the edge of known space where two old stars orbited each other. Hyunwoo was trying to calculate a jump to the next system when the sensors began screaming warnings. "3 ships approaching fast," Boram reported from the engine room. "Zephyrian Republic military vessels. And 2 more coming from the other direction," Hyunwoo added, his voice tight with fear. "Crystalline Syndicate hunters." 5 ships total, Taeho said, watching the tactical display. "We can't outrun them all." Nuri stood up from her seat, and as she did, the lights on the ship began to flicker. "I won't let them take me, and I won't let them hurt my family." "Nuri, what are you thinking?" Taeho asked, recognizing the look in her eyes. "Something I probably shouldn't do," she said. "But something I have to do." She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, touching the hyperspace network that connected the stars. But instead of bending space to create a wormhole like before, she did something much more drastic. All around them, in a sphere that extended for dozens of light years, the hyperspace beacons went dark. Every faster-than-light communication relay stopped working. Every jump gate shut down. The pursuing ships suddenly found themselves stranded in normal space, unable to call for help or travel faster than light. "What did you do?" Teho asked in amazement. "I created a dead zone," Nuri said, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort. "No one can use hyperspace in this entire region now. The hunting fleets can't follow us, but—" She stopped and Teho saw tears in her eyes. "But what?" "But I've also trapped thousands of innocent ships and cut off communication to millions of people. Trading ships carrying food and medicine to colonies. Passenger ships full of families. Communication. Networks that connect people to their loved ones across the galaxy." The weight of what she had done settled over all of them. To save themselves, Nuri had been forced to cause exactly the kind of suffering she had been trying to avoid. "How long will the dead zone last?" Hyunwoo asked quietly. "I don't know," Nuri admitted. "Maybe weeks, maybe months. I've never done anything this big before." Over the next few days, as they traveled through the dead zone at normal speeds, they monitored emergency broadcasts from the trapped ships. Most were handling the situation well, but some were in real trouble. A medical ship carrying critical supplies to a plague-stricken colony. A passenger liner with failing life support. A cargo vessel carrying food to a world facing famine. "I have to fix this," Nuri said on the third day. "I have to bring the network back online." "If you do that, the hunting fleets will find us again," Teho warned. "I know, but I can't let innocent people suffer because of me. There has to be another way." She spent hours studying the star charts and the technical manuals about hyperspace technology that Jin-A had given them. Finally, she looked up with a determined expression. "I have an idea, but it's dangerous and I'll need help." "What kind of help?" Teho asked. "I need to get to the Free Haven Collective. They're the only ones in the galaxy who might be willing to stand up to the three empires." The Free Haven Collective was a loose alliance of independent worlds and species that refused to join any of the major galactic powers. They had their own small fleet and their own territory in the Outer Rim. Most importantly, they had a reputation for protecting refugees and outcasts. "It's on the other side of the galaxy," Hyunwoo pointed out. "And even if we could get there, why would they risk war with three empires for one person?" "Because I'm not just one person," Nuri said quietly. "I'm the key to something bigger. If I can rebuild the hyperspace network the right way, I can make it so that no single government can control it. The network could belong to everyone, or to no one. Is that possible?" Boram asked. "My people designed the original network to be free and open. The three empires have been fighting over it for thousands of years, but they've never been able to truly control it, because it wasn't meant to be controlled. If I can restore it to the way my people intended, no one will be able to use it to dominate others." It was a desperate plan, but it was the only hope they had. Teho looked at his young daughter, amazed by her courage and wisdom. She was willing to risk everything not just to save herself and her family, but to free the entire galaxy from the control of those who would misuse her people's gift. "Then that's what we'll do," he said. "We'll get you to Free Haven space." "The empires won't just let us go," Hyunwoo warned. "When you restore the hyperspace network, every ship in the galaxy will come after us." "I know," Nuri said, "but maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Maybe it's time for the galaxy to see what the stellar architects really intended." As she spoke, her eyes began to glow with that familiar star-like light. Around them, the dead hyperspace beacons slowly began to flicker back to life. The network was awakening, and with it, the final chase would begin. In the distance, the hunting fleets received the signal. The journey to Free Haven space took 2 weeks of dangerous travel through the Outer Rim territories. The wandering star had to avoid patrol ships from all three empires while crossing through areas of space that most traders considered too risky to enter. Pirates, asteroid fields, and unstable stars made every jump a gamble with their lives. When they finally reached the border of Free Haven Collective space, they were met by a patrol fleet of mixed ships. Some were human vessels, others belonged to alien species that Tai-Ho had never seen before. The ships looked old and patched together, but their weapons were clearly functional. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself and state your business in Freehaven space," came a voice over their communication system. "This is Captain Tai-Ho of the cargo ship Wandering Star. We're requesting sanctuary for my daughter. We have information that could be vital to the collective's security." There was a long pause before the voice responded. "Follow our lead ship to New Liberty Station. Do not deviate from the course we provide. Any attempt to flee or change direction will result in your destruction." New Liberty was unlike any space station Tai-Ho had ever seen. It was built from hundreds of different ship designs welded together over many years. Parts of it looked human. Other sections were clearly alien construction. The whole structure spun slowly, creating artificial gravity through rotation. They were escorted to a docking bay where armed guards waited for them. But these guards were different from the Imperial soldiers they had encountered. The group included humans, tall blue-skinned aliens, small furry creatures that walked on four legs, and several species Tai-Ho couldn't identify. What they all had in common was a look of determination and independence. "I am Commander Sulbin," said their leader, a middle-aged Korean woman with gray hair and scars on her face that spoke of many battles. "I understand you have something the three empires want very badly. My daughter," Tai-Ho said, putting his arm protectively around Nuri's shoulders. Sulbin looked at Nuri with curious eyes. "And you are the famous star Orphan that half the galaxy is hunting for. You look smaller than I expected." "I'm bigger than I look," Nuri said quietly, meeting the commander's gaze without flinching. Sulbin smiled. "I believe you are. Come. The Council of Free Worlds is waiting to meet you." The council chambers were in the center of the station, a large circular room with representatives from dozens of different species. Some sat in chairs, others floated in special environments, and a few participated through holographic projection from distant worlds. "The situation is simple," Sulbin explained to the assembled representatives. "This child possesses the ability to control the galaxy's hyperspace network. The three empires have formed an alliance to capture her and use her abilities to dominate all interstellar travel and communication." "And what does she want?" asked a representative with green scales and multiple eyes. Nuri stepped forward, looking very small in the large chamber but speaking with a clear, strong voice. "I want to rebuild the hyperspace network the way my people originally designed it, so that it belongs to everyone, not just to governments that want to use it to control others." "Is such a thing possible?" asked another representative, this one a human woman from one of the outer colonies. "I think so," Nuri said. "But I'll need help. The three empires won't just let me do it. They'll send everything they have to stop me." "Child," said an elderly alien with silver skin, "you're asking us to risk war with the three most powerful forces in the galaxy. Our fleets are strong, but we are greatly outnumbered." "I know it's a lot to ask," Nuri replied, "but if we don't try, the empires will eventually hunt me down anyway. At least this way we have a chance to make things better for everyone." The debate went on for hours. Some representatives wanted to turn Nuri over to the empires to avoid a devastating war. Others argued that the Freehaven Collective had been founded to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. In the end, it was Sulbin who cast the deciding vote. "We didn't create the Freehaven Collective to take the easy path," she said. "We created it to stand up for what's right. This child deserves the chance to use her gifts as she chooses, not as others force her to." The vote was close, but the collective agreed to protect Nuri and help her with her plan. Over the next few days, they prepared for what everyone knew would be the largest space battle in galactic history. The three empires didn't keep them waiting long. Within a week, the largest fleet ever assembled appeared at the edge of Freehaven space. Thousands of ships from the Vorthan hegemony, the Crystalline Syndicate, and the Zephyrian Republic filled the star system around New Liberty. Commander Veltharian's voice came over the communication channels, as cold and mechanical as ever. "Freehaven Collective, you are harboring a strategic asset that belongs to the lawful governments of this galaxy. Surrender the asset immediately, or face the consequences." Sulbin responded from the bridge of her flagship, The only thing we're harboring here is a young girl who wants to live free from those who would exploit her. If you want her, you'll have to come through us." The Free Haven fleet was impressive for an independent alliance, but it was still greatly outnumbered. They had perhaps 300 ships of various sizes against thousands of Imperial warships. The odds seemed hopeless, but Nuri had a different plan than fighting a traditional space battle. As the Imperial fleets began their attack, Nuri sat in a special chamber that the Free Haven engineers had built for her. It was connected to the station's communication array and linked to the hyperspace beacons throughout the galaxy. Tejo sat beside her, holding her hand. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "No," she admitted. "But it's what my people would have wanted. It's what's right." The battle began with the Imperial fleets advancing in formation. Sulbin's ships moved to intercept them, but everyone knew they couldn't hold out for long against such overwhelming numbers. That's when Nuri began her work. Instead of fighting the attacking fleets, she reached out with her mind to touch each ship individually. Using her control over space and time, she began to relocate them. Not violently, not harmfully, but gently. Ships that had been approaching for battle suddenly found themselves floating peacefully in empty space, thousands of light years away. The crews were unharmed, their ships undamaged, but they were no longer a threat to New Liberty. It was like watching a cosmic magic trick as thousands of warships simply disappeared from the battle zone, relocated to distant, safe locations throughout the galaxy. But Nuri's real work was just beginning. As the Imperial fleets found themselves scattered across space, she began rebuilding the hyperspace network itself. Every beacon, every jump gate, every communication relay was redesigned and rebuilt with her people's original vision. The new network was different from what had existed before. No single government could control it or shut it down. It responded to the needs of travelers, not the commands of rulers. Pirates and military fleets found that the network wouldn't help them if they intended to harm innocent people. But traders, explorers, families, and those seeking peaceful purposes found that travel became easier and safer than ever before. "It's beautiful," Hyunwoo said, watching the technical displays as the new network came online. "The whole galaxy is connecting in ways it never has before." The three empires, finding their fleet scattered and their ability to control interstellar travel removed, had no choice but to accept the new reality. Over the following weeks, they tried to negotiate, threaten, and bargain, but Nuri's work was complete. The hyperspace network now belonged to everyone. The Free Haven Accords were signed 6 months later, establishing new rules for galactic travel and communication. Nuri was recognized as a protected being under international law, with Tejo as her legal guardian. The three empires were forced to accept that their age of dominance through control of space travel was over. But for Nuri, the most important part wasn't the grand political changes. It was the simple fact that she could continue to be what she had always wanted to be, a daughter with a father who loved her. 5 years later, Nuri had grown into a confident teenager. She spent part of her time traveling with Tejo on the Wandering Star, which had been upgraded with some of the best technology in the galaxy. The rest of her time was spent at the New Liberty Academy, where she studied alongside children from dozens of different species. She still helped maintain the galaxy's hyperspace network, but only when she chose to, and only in ways that helped people. The network had become something alive and responsive, helping those in need and refusing to assist those who would cause harm. "Do you ever regret it?" Tejo asked her one evening as they sat in the observation lounge of their ship, watching the stars stream by as they traveled to their next destination. "Regret what?" Nuri asked. "Giving up your power. You could have ruled the galaxy if you had wanted to." Nuri laughed, and the sound was like music among the stars. "Appa, I didn't give up my power. I used it for what it was meant for. My people weren't rulers. They were gardeners, tending to the connections between worlds so that life could grow and flourish. And what about you? What do you want to be when you grow up?" Nuri smiled and leaned against his shoulder. "I want to be what I already am. Your daughter. Everything else is just extra." The Wandering Star.